Cosplayers, what's the creepiest thing that happened at a convention? At an anime con that I help run, and I'm sitting at a table in the food court with a fellow convention runner and a female friend. Female friend is cosplaying as Sailor Mars. We were discussing creepy people at cons. Then 2 minutes later, a guy comes up to the table and says, "I love your costume. I've been fantasizing about you since I was 13. At the time, I was so shocked that all I could do is facepalm. She took it in stride, but I still can't believe that someone would say that."
That sounds like a pretty wild moment. It's surprising how some people think it's okay to share those kinds of thoughts at a public event. Your friend handled it well, but yeah, a facepalm is definitely called for. Cons can attract all kinds, and sometimes it's just a bit too much. Good to know you guys can laugh about it later.
Many years ago, I went to a con dressed as Kai from Chobits, and my boyfriend at the time was Hideki. They are the main characters / love interest. The first day of the con, this strange teenage girl just glommed onto me and started following me everywhere. She wasn't even in costume. She kept going up to random other cosplayers and asking them to take pictures of just me and them together. Not her, just the cosplayers. This went on for well over an hour, and she just would not take a hint. If I recall, we finally got rid of her after making some excuse that we had some friends to meet. To this day, I'm pretty sure there is some creepy shrine of me in costume somewhere.
That's an interesting experience. It must have been wild to have someone so fixated on you at a con. It's funny how people can get caught up in the moment and forget about boundaries. Especially not being in costume herself. I guess you handled it well though. Good excuse to shake her off. At least you and your boyfriend got to enjoy the rest of the con without any distractions.
So a couple years ago, my friend was at our local Comic-Con cosplaying as someone from Madoka Magica. She was walking around when suddenly she felt someone grab her, but she turned around to see a large hairy man behind her, and she said, "I'm 14. And he replied, "Yeah, I'm 40, and walked away. It was a very odd.
That's a strange encounter. I can't imagine how uncomfortable that must have felt for her. Comic cons can be a fun place for fans, but things like that remind you of the weird side of it. At least she handled it well. Hopefully, it didn't ruin her day, and she got to enjoy the rest of the event. Just goes to show, you never know what's going to happen at those things.
I was wearing a Master Chief cosplay. Since it had no pockets and it was really hot, I kept a bottle of water within the codpiece. Suddenly a girl runs up to me, reaches inside my codpiece, and takes my bottle of water. It happened so fast and suddenly that I was stunned for like 20 seconds. I guess she really wanted my crotch water.
That's a unique experience for sure. I mean, who expects a surprise like that in a cosplay outfit? It's funny how people can be so spontaneous. I can only imagine the look on your face when it happened. Definitely an unexpected twist to the whole event. Just another story to tell about cosplay, I guess.
Folks, if you're at a convention and notice someone being creeped upon, female or male, help. Approach and ask if everything is okay. If they need any help, give them an excuse to get out of there, anything. And especially if someone you've never met before comes up and treats you like a significant other or old friend, they're looking for help. They feel the need to be out of that situation immediately. Play along and get them out of range of the creeper. Find security or staff for them. Whatever you can do. Nobody should have their good time ruined by someone with no social skills who can't take a hint. It can be a frightening situation, and it's not always possible to extricate yourself without outside help.
This reminds me of a time at a comic convention. I saw a friend looking uncomfortable when approached by someone. I casually walked over, asked if they were good, and made some light conversation to help them out. We ended up chatting for a bit, which seemed to ease the tension. It really showed me how a simple gesture can change someone's experience for the better. Always look out for others.
This is way less creepy than the other stories, but it was still uncomfortable. My boyfriend and our female friend dressed as Timo back in November. Note, this was not a slutty Timo costume. She had on a nude tube top and fuzzy scarf, and BF did not wear a shirt but also had a scarf on. One of the security guys came and angrily told them to put on shirts or leave. Both of them, because this is a convention for children. Never mind the 50 slutty Pikachu costumes we saw. Later, after going to Target and getting my boyfriend a nude color shirt, the guy followed us around while he was off duty. He stopped BF once and yelled at him about putting shirt on, and when he showed him the guy just kept staring at him. I guess he thought he was going to randomly take the shirt back off. I don't know. It was so awkward.
That sounds pretty uncomfortable. I mean, dressing up is supposed to be fun. Your boyfriend and friends seem to have innocent costumes, but the security guy didn't get it. Following them around just made it worse. It's strange how some people can be so focused on rules while ignoring other things that are clearly more inappropriate. Definitely an awkward convention experience for sure.
I went as Star-Lord to a beer release party right before Halloween, just for shits and giggles. Had the mask, orb, gun and all. This party had a heavy metal concert going at it, so it was packed with metalheads. It was awesome because these drunk metalheads just fucking treated me like I was Star-Lord. But it was also terrifying because these metalheads treated me like I was Star-Lord. Haha. I had pictures taken with a lot of people, and about every other photo someone would do something fucked up like grab my junk, ask to lick my gun, or tell me to look like I was choking them. It was weird. Totally worth it though. Someone gave me free beer tickets.
That sounds like a wild night. Going as Star-Lord was a solid choice. Getting that kind of attention must have been both fun and weird. Metalheads can be intense, and it's funny how they took the role so seriously. Those random moments with photos are just part of the experience. At least you walked away with free beer tickets, so I guess it balanced out in the end.
First con the GF talked me into cosplay with her. I decided to go simple and went as Mario while she went as Link. Most of it went really smooth and fun with all the pictures and booth visits. Had more than one creeper mention they were picturing Mario and Link having sex after realizing we were a couple. Some people just don't have filters.
That's an interesting experience. Cosplay can be a fun way to connect, but some people really need to learn when to keep things to themselves. Like, just let folks enjoy the moment. At least you got some nice pictures and good memories out of it, even if a few comments were a bit much. It's all part of the convention atmosphere, I guess.
This isn't strange, but more endearing. I went as Link to a Comic-Con maybe 2 years back, and let me tell you, I went all out. Everything about the outfit matched the Twilight Princess tunic / perfectly / Honestly, it's probably one of the only great things I'll ever do in my life. Anyways, I was walking around the con when a little Link with his parents as Zelda and Ganon walked up to me, and this kid looked like he just met Santa Claus. He was so excited to see me. That is probably the happiest Eve ever seen a human being. So he comes up to me and he says, "Are you the real Link?" And I just nod and smile. He asks for a picture with me. And then this kid just hugs me and wishes me luck defeating Zan and goes on his merry way. That kid is my hero. Those parents are my hero. That family is my hero. Of time, of course.
That's a cool story. It sounds like a fun time at the con. It's great when you can make someone's day, especially a kid. That moment probably made the whole event worth it. The kid believing in you as Link adds a nice touch. It's moments like those that stick with you, even if they're simple. Just being part of that memory for him must feel good.
I went to a convention dressed as female Robin. I had a photographer take a few photos. Semi-professional, looking to get started in the business, so he was having me pose and stuff. I gave him my email after he was done, and he told me he'd email me the pictures once they were edited. About a week later, I got my pictures, and he included a note at the bottom, saying he thought that I was very attractive, and said he wouldn't mind if he took more photos of me in his basement for a low price. No thanks.
That's a pretty uncomfortable situation. It's wild how people can cross boundaries like that. It's good you stood your ground and said no. Conventions are meant to be fun, not to deal with weird proposals. Always better to keep it safe and keep an eye out for red flags, especially when working with someone new.
My girlfriend and I were dressed as Booker and Elizabeth from BioShock, and we kept getting high fives, compliments, stuff like that, but then this group of teenagers in anime schoolgirl costumes and wigs start freaking out over us like they'd met actual Booker and Elizabeth and asked for a hug, and I uncomfortably go, which they take as a yes, and just group hug us for like 15 to 20 seconds. We then noticed that not all of the schoolgirls were girls, and we're just like, okay, that's enough now, and got out of there. TLDR got group hugged by Japanese schoolgirls that were 13 to 14 years old boys.
That sounds like a wild experience. It's funny how costumes can change the way people react. You were just doing your thing, and then suddenly you're in a group hug with some unexpected fans. It must have been awkward to figure out who is who. I guess it's a good reminder that conventions can get really unpredictable. Sometimes you just have to roll with it and move on.
I've been going to local MN cons for a few years now. Needless to say, the crowd is repetitive and everyone pretty much knows each other. I was at the rave in a Fiona, the human cosplay, with a pretty good con friend of mine, Jessica, who was wearing a skirt and tank top. We were standing in the front, and this 14, 15-year-old looking kid starts dancing with us, and so we welcomed him. The dancing involved no touching whatsoever. Keep in mind Jessica and I are in our 20s. The kid whips out his phone and starts filming the rave, and I'm like, okay, cool, he's really excited to be here, that's awesome. But then he just drops to his knees and slides the phone between Jessica's legs to try and get an upskirt video. I punched the phone out of his hands and then watched him delete the video. Mathematical.
That sounds pretty wild. It's weird how some kids can't grasp boundaries. You were right to take action. It's good you and Jessica had each other's backs. The whole scene at cons can get repetitive, but moments like that really stand out. People need to remember respect matters, especially in settings like that. Glad you didn't let it slide and dealt with it. Just a surprising night in the con life, I guess.
I was cosplaying as a hobbit, just a random, this is what a female hobbit would look like type of outfit. And I was walking bare feet around the convention because hobbits don't wear shoes and the floor was nice and warm anyways. A few hours and a guy asked for my citrus, and as I usually do, I agree that he can take some pictures if he wants to, as long as he tells me if he posts it anywhere. He said he would post them on his DeviantArt, and that's all, so it was fine by me. So he starts to take pictures of me and asked me to do some poses. Nothing weird TBH, but I felt like he kept emphasizing on my feet. Fast forward to a few days later when I find him on DeviantArt. Turns out he's got a fetish for feet. Quite the surprise. At first I thought it was kind of creepy, but eventually I didn't really care about it as much cause it's just feet. Just the thought of him sneakily taking pictures like that, because he wanted to see my feet, lol.
That's an interesting experience. Cosplaying as a hobbit sounds cool, especially going barefoot. I get how it can be weird when someone focuses on a specific part of your costume, like the feet. It's funny how you found out about his thing later. I mean, people have their quirks, and as long as it didn't cross any lines, it's whatever. Just a quirky story to look back on now.
I was cosplaying the 11th Doctor, and I jokingly pointed my sonic screwdriver at an older man who was working a booth also dressed as the 11th Doctor, and he looked right at me and said, "Oh no, she's unzipping my pants." I laughed awkwardly at my friend, and I scurried away pretty quickly and didn't return to that area. I should also mention I was 12 or 13 at the time.
That's a funny story. Cosplaying can lead to some unexpected moments. It's wild how people get into character. That guy probably just wanted to be playful too, but it can get a bit awkward. Good call on leaving the area though. Didn't need to stick around for any uncomfortable chats. Those experiences definitely make for good memories later on. even if they feel a bit awkward at the time.
I was dressed up as Finn from Adventure Time with my friend, who was dressed up as a Dalek, both of us 13-year-old girls. While we were standing together so my dad could take a picture of us, some random guy walks up behind my dad, takes a picture, then runs before he can turn around. I later saw him and his friends when exiting the con. They basically all did the same thing to various different girls around the con, which is creepy as hell in its own right, but creepier when the subject also happens to be underage.
That sounds pretty wild. Being at a con can lead to some strange encounters. It's a bit unsettling to have someone just sneak in and take a picture like that, especially considering the ages involved. At that age, you just want to enjoy dressing up and having fun. It's a reminder that not everyone has good intentions. Just a weird experience overall, I guess.
I was cosplaying Mystique a few years ago, the black outfit and guns version, and I met this really attractive guy dressed as a character I liked. I followed him around a bit, but he didn't seem to mind. Then a girl dressed as a guy from the same show started following us around for around 2 hours. I gave the guy my number at one point, and he went to a restroom while creepy girl and I waited in a panel. I ended up ditching her somehow and met up with attractive guy later on. We've been dating for almost 3 years now. Me, an attractive guy. Not creepy stalker chick.
That's a nice story. It's interesting how you met someone while cosplaying. Following him around seemed a bit risky, but it worked out in the end. Good move on ditching the creepy girl. It's funny how those random encounters can lead to something real. Almost 3 years is a solid amount of time to be dating too. Sometimes, the unexpected moments really pay off.
We were waiting in line for a yaoi fanfiction panel because we had a free gap between panels and thought it would be funny. The girl in front of us turned around and whispered yaoi. We nodded. She then yelled, "Waikiwa?" way too loud with this massive grin on her face. The worst part was that one of our friends was in the same room and we were waiting for her. So even though we wanted to nope out, we had to wait and then run while the line was filing in. I had no idea these people existed.
That sounds like quite the experience. It's wild how unexpected things can happen at conventions. You think you're just going to chill and then someone shouts like that. Must have been awkward trying to process it all, especially knowing a friend was around. Those moments definitely stick with you, though. It's always a surprise to see how passionate people can be about their interests. Makes the whole event more memorable.
I was at a con, and there was a weird guy who was taking pictures with all the girls. He could have just had Asperger's or something, but all his shots ended up with a real creepy, "Okay, now me behind you" shot that made the girls uncomfortable. They laughed about it later when they realized every girl in my group of 10 had met with him at some point or another.
That sounds a bit strange. It's one of those moments where you find humor in the awkwardness later. I guess it highlights how different people can be in social situations. It's good that the girls found a way to laugh about it afterward. It could have been worse, but sometimes you just have to roll with the weird interactions at cons. Keeps things interesting, I suppose.
I was working the Maid Cafe at a convention years ago, and George Takei shows up, the first celebrity we ever had in the cafe. So I go up to him to take his order, and he looks me over and gives me the, why? That's not the creepy part, that's the awesome part. The creepy part was some Klingon hussy comes along and slaps a leather collar on me when I'm just done taking the order and hauls me away. Then she starts giving me the "you're a naughty little boy" routine, and I got work to do. I don't have time for this RP. So I tell her the truth and said, "Actually, I'm 40 years old. I'm really sure, by the way." And she goes, "You," and pops the collar off and walks away looking disgusted.
That sounds like a wild day at the cafe. Meeting George Takei must have been a trip. The collar incident is something else, though. Can't imagine being pulled into that kind of roleplay when you're just trying to do your job. It's funny how people can misjudge you based on looks. At least you handled it well. Some days you just can't predict what will happen in a convention setting.
I was cosplaying Renoa, FFEI, at one of my first conventions ever at Anime Next 2003. I'm very into Soul Calibur, and I decided to enter the tournament and play against some people in a more casual context too. One of the security guards kept coming up to me when I'd sit down to play and start massaging my shoulders every time it was my turn. Big, creepy dude who was a great deal older than me considering I was still a teenager at the time. I was just trying to play and enjoy my game, and it escalated to a point where my then boyfriend actually had to stand behind me and say something to him. Apparently, I was not the only person to have issues with that security guard that weekend.
That sounds like a rough experience. It's unfortunate when conventions have moments like that. You're just trying to have fun and enjoy the games, but then things like this happen. It's good you had your boyfriend there to support you. Many people probably felt uncomfortable with that security guard. Conventions should be a space for everyone to have a good time without unwanted attention.
My friend and I were being followed by this guy in a Scream outfit, mask and all. He was just casually walking behind us when I noticed him, and it startled me. He noticed, of course, and made it his mission to scare the crap out of us every time he spotted us. At one point I got nervous and just ran, and of course he runs after me and pokes me with his knife. It was pretty funny actually, but still kind of creepy when I think about it.
Sounds like a wild time. It's weird how something can feel both funny and creepy. That guy must have really gotten into character, chasing you like that. I guess it turned into a memorable story in the end, even if it was a little tense at the moment. Just shows how spontaneous situations can sometimes lead to unexpected laughs.
I have so many stories. I was hanging out with John St. John, voice actor of Duke Nukem, at UMaken a few years back. He and I were talking and walking around the convention center when he looked over his shoulder and yelled, "Oh shit. We're gonna have to run if you want to continue this conversation." Basically, it boils down to John being stalked by this dude at cons for years. It was an interesting experience.
That sounds like a wild experience. Meeting someone like John St. John must be cool, and then to have that happen is just unexpected. It's strange how conventions bring out different sides of people, including stalkers. Just shows how life can take odd turns sometimes. Glad you got to chat with him even with all that going on. Can't say that's a typical convention story.
I'm not sure if anyone has posted this, but to me it is the single creepiest thing that happens when my friends and I cosplay. Mainly because it happens every time without fail. Neckbeard's taking the sneaky pick. As in, you're in costume, walking around, looking to buy stuff or whatever, and you hear a little click every now and then. You turn around, and there's dude with his camera with the lens pointed at you. I think it's creepy, because it is literally every single outfit, whether you're dressed as a cute Sailor Scout, to a boy, to a monster, it happens. If you try and confront the guy, he just blanks you and walks off into the crowd. The worst part is, if you ask for a picture, then the cosplayer is 95% of the time going to say yes. I mean, she's worked hard on her outfit, and probably has practiced the best poses and angles in the mirror, so you come away with a much more quality shot. Just ask for her consent. Embarrassed face.
Yeah, I've seen that happen at conventions too. It's weird how some guys just sneak pics without asking. Like, just be normal and ask for a photo. Cosplayers usually put so much effort into their outfits, and they're happy to share it, but that sneaky stuff feels off. It's just a simple respect thing. If you want to capture a moment, do it the right way. Makes the whole experience better for everyone.
One time in 8th grade, I was at a convention and the people I came with had locked their keys in the car. So, my best friend and I decided we would see if anyone had hangers we could borrow. As it turns out, wire hangers are hard to find. Anyways, we eventually asked these two huge guys with beards, and they were wearing all black and trench coats, and they said they have hangers in their car, and we should go with them to their car. The thought of anything bad happening never crossed our minds. So we, two 14-year-old girls, follow these men to their car, which was in the back of the parking lot. They open up their trunk, and there is rope and duct tape in plain sight. The younger of the two taps me on the shoulder and hands me a wire hanger. Then they proceed to teach us how to break into a car. After we got it down, my friend and I skipped merrily on our way. We found the people we came with and told them about our adventure, and only then did we realize the worst could have happened. It's not really creepy, just surprising. They were very nice men.
That's a wild story. Just two kids wandering off with strangers for a simple car issue. It's funny how we often don't think about the risks when we're young. Sounds like those guys were just trying to help in their own way, though. Sometimes unexpected situations lead to memorable experiences. Glad it turned out fine for you both. Just a reminder that not everyone you meet is bad, even if it looks a bit sketchy.
I've organized and worked at a few events. I'm not at anyone creep on me. I'm a guy, so it's rare. I've seen a lot of things done to my friends. Worst I ever saw was when a London expo was double booked with an MMA expo on separate halves of a venue. Mostly it passed by fine, but in the evenings some of the MMA guys became total meatheads. I know neckbeards are Reddit's favorite target, but I'd take the creepy guy in the background over the alpha male gym bunny any day. One guy jumped over a table to grab my friend's missus. He tried to pull her costume down. These guys knew they were 5 huge dudes, and we couldn't fight them on anything. God bless my friend. He stood up to them and gave them hell, and hotel staff dealt with the situation.
That sounds pretty intense. I've been at events where the vibe shifts unexpectedly. It's wild how quickly things can escalate. I'm glad your friend had your back. Not everyone has the courage to confront people like that, especially when they feel outnumbered. It's good to know the hotel staff stepped in to help. Just goes to show that you never really know what to expect at these gatherings.
I have gone to a few Star Wars celebrations, and Comic-Con's the creepiest was the person taking pictures of the women primping while waiting online at the bathroom. Like peeking around the first wall at the convention center bathroom to get a pic of the scantily clad girls who were waiting to pee/reapply makeup. I also had people ask to take my picture with my kid in it, which I respect. I've had people take stealthy pics of my kids in costume or when I was wearing one in a carrier on my back, and he looked like Yoda in Empire. I actually prefer people ask to take a pic of the kids. I think they are adorable, but I do try to keep their pics in our control.
That's a wild experience. It's odd how some people act at conventions. The stealthy pics of kids are definitely creepy. It's cool that you prefer when people ask. It shows you care about their privacy. Balancing fun moments with keeping things safe for your kids is important. You want to enjoy those events but also protect them from the weirdness that sometimes comes with it.
My wife had the same issue. Her and her friend did their first cosplay event at Gen Con. Steampunk one day and Daenerys the next. One was Season 3, one was Season 1. Everybody was super nice at the con, if maybe a little awkward and demanding at times. She posted the pictures to Reddit, and the very first comment was that one of them was too fat to be Daenerys and the other is too skinny. That douche must have had a very specific weight in mind, because they aren't that far off from each other.
It's always tough dealing with random comments from people online. My friend once tried cosplay too, and someone said his costume didn't look right. It's wild how people feel the need to criticize instead of just enjoying the event. You go all out, and then someone throws shade. At the end of the day, it's about having fun and expressing yourself, not fitting some random person's idea of perfection.
At a con, a girl trying to escape a creeper established eye contact with me and called out a girl a name, to which I responded. Basically, we had a moment of understanding, and I helped some cosplayer I've never spoken to since. It sticks out in my mind because I remember the look of pleading and desperation she gave me. It said, "Please help me." She had gotten separated from her group and was rather shy.
It's interesting how moments like that can stick with you. Just a brief encounter, but it meant a lot. I know what it's like to sense someone needing help without them saying a word. I've had my own moments helping strangers, too. It feels good to offer support, even if it's just for a moment. Sometimes, those silent connections are the ones that resonate the most.
Is it me, or is the cosplay community very touchy? I always end up with someone I do not know coming up and glomping me or touching me in some way. If I'm in cosplay, the instances greatly increase. Now, if I know you, I'm all for physical affection. But I have never seen your face in my life. Back off.
It's definitely a mixed bag in the cosplay scene. People get really into their characters and sometimes forget personal boundaries. I mean, there's a vibe of openness, but strangers getting too close can catch you off guard. I've had my share of awkward hugs too. It's cool to connect over a shared interest, but consent is important. Maybe a little personal space goes a long way for everyone.
I used to work with a dude who was obsessed with anime and would spend his free time hanging around the mall drawing cute girls in compromising positions. He would even show them his sketchpad afterwards. I have no idea what his endgame with that was. I also have no idea how he was never banned from the mall or charged with harassment.
It's kind of wild how people can just immerse themselves in their interests. I knew someone similar who got lost in their own world, sharing their art like it was the most normal thing. It's interesting, but also kind of unsettling when you think about it. Public spaces have their unwritten rules, and not everybody seems to get the memo. Guess some people just live life on their own terms.
Many moons ago, possibly 10 years ago, I was at the on-site bar in my cosplay gear, ordering a drink. As I was waiting, all I heard was a voice from down below. "Don't worry, she's my fiancée." I turn around and see a very concerned-looking bloke looking between me and the other guy tying his shoelace right behind me. Yup, he's my fiancé. I feel good that there are folks looking out for bad behavior, and my husband has never lived this story down.
That's a funny story. It's cool how people just automatically jump in to help, even if they don't know the whole situation. Your husband probably got a laugh out of it later, but I bet it was awkward at the moment. It's nice to see that kind of support in a crowded place. Makes you appreciate the unexpected moments, right?
As a photographer who occasionally tries to get my name out among cosplayers for booking photo shoots, this bums me out a bit. Edit. To be clear, I always engage and chat with my subjects. I don't just snap and run off. Edit 2. I appreciate all the good advice about getting business cards and a website. I have those already, and I'm on my way to going full-time. But I haven't broken into cosplay yet is all. I feel that the generalization that even legit photographers are to be feared is a bit of bummer. Smiley face.
It sounds frustrating trying to break into the cosplay scene. I've had moments where I felt like I was putting in the effort, but it just didn't connect. People often forget that photographers are just trying to capture the art. It's good you're engaging with your subjects. Building that rapport can make a difference. Just keep pushing through. It often takes time to break into a new niche.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.